Okay, awesome. We are live. Just waiting in on Alien Toadstool to come in. Good evening, everyone. Super excited to be here. It's been a long time since we did the last live, so quite quite excited, especially with a special guest that we have today.
Yeah, we've been meeting to have for a while now.
For a long time. Honestly, we had a live planned with him a while ago, and now it's taken some time to get back. A lot of commitments at Nuvedo.
Mushrooms don't stop going on Sundays.
Yes, indeed, as Jashid has said. We'll just wait in again. You know how the Instagram lives sometimes work. We're not always able to sync in immediately. So we'll just wait in for it and then we will start in 2 minutes. In the meanwhile, I hope all of y'all are doing well. Keeping good during this monsoon. We've been speaking of monsoon, we've actually been out a lot and have had the fortune to encounter many mushrooms, many fungi in various possible formats. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. While the discovery has been fun and also very interesting, we also met like a complete new community of people that we've been associated with and have learned a lot. So super happy to be doing this and happy to share one more very special member today of the community with all of you. Just have to give us a few more minutes until we figure out why Instagram will not let him join in. Until then, we keep you all entertained, hopefully.
Yeah. So yeah, just so that we have time. We have a workshop actually coming up, so all of you all who are tuning in from Bangalore, on this Saturday, we're doing a flea market with Daily Dump. And as part of the flea market from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., we have this workshop. It's priced at 100 rupees so that, anybody can come. It's going to be more of a demonstrative workshop with a hands-on demo. So you won't be making your own grow kits like you do in the previous workshops that we've posted. This one is more of a theory session with a demo, so you can see how this works and you can decide if you want to come for our advanced workshop, so you want to buy our products. So Saturday, 3 to 4 p.m. in Indira Nagar, you can find the link on our stories if you want to register. I think that they are allowing walk-ins also, but it's much better if you can come, if you can register and be there beforehand. So this is a live that I think we've been really looking forward to, and I'm finally glad that it is happening and it will happen soon. So Harry's been a good friend of us from the beginning of Nuvedo.
Yeah.
I'll let Prithvi do all the talking once Harry's
actually we just have to wait because he's having a bit of technical issues joining in on the live and this tends to happen. So please bear with us. We're really sorry about that. Just have to maybe give it 5 more minutes. We're just trying to circle back in and figure out what to do.
So yeah, Hari's been somebody who's been really closely associated with us since the beginning of Nuvedo, and I think it was a serendipitous moment when we discovered Hari on a lot of Facebook groups, doing a lot of identification work, much needed work, I should say. Then we met face to face in Bangalore. We went on a foraging walk, of course we did. And that's when we really got introduced to him, and from then it's just been an amazing journey, and it's been a brilliant friendship with him, and I feel like he's one of those people who's really taking this space forward and making it more and more accessible to people out there. A lot of y'all who are tuning in would be quite familiar with his name or his Instagram page actually, called the Indian Toadstool.
He goes by the name Indian Toadstool, and that's his avatar where he likes to put on, perhaps to kind of given his new, face to the entire.
Hi.
Okay, I think. Yes. Hi, Hari. Oh my God.
Finally.
This took a very long time.
Sorry for the delay. Some technical issue was there, so.
Yeah.
I hope it's fine now.
Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Okay, I can see you. This is great. Finally. Hello everyone, welcome Hari to the live. We've been meaning to do this for a long time. We're happy to we are, finally
Yeah.
in doing this with you. And before we begin, welcome everybody who's tuned in, and thank you for bearing with us for the last 7 minutes of our banter. Both Jashid and I have the gift of the gap, so that was a little demonstration for you. In the meanwhile, today's Mush Talk, very, very happy to announce, is on Through the Mycoverse. Now, Through the Mycoverse is a series that we started where we really look at different people in the mycology space and look at their journeys, look at how they explored those spaces, what motivated them. And today's topic is identification and taxonomy and foraging and things related to that. So the real no, that's good.
Yeah.
So the real essence of this is with Indian Toadstool here, who's Hari, and he goes by the name Indian Toadstool mostly on his virtual platform, and I think that's really what we'd like to go ahead, referring to him as. Hari comes from a very interesting background. I'll let him also speak about his journey, but before that, I'd like to tell you all that he has, a way of looking at nature and is a very keen observer. He's had his way in various contexts that has really taken my breath away, where I have been pretty amazed by the kind of things that he finds and he does. I think Jashid can also vouch for that.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Jashid, just give me 1 second. Yeah. So the idea is that while Hari has had his exploration in the mycology space, he also interestingly comes from a biotech background. So he is a biotechnologist by profession, and he has had the opportunity to look into it from a more deeper perspective. And also, when it comes to the space of identification, he's one of the top 30 ranked, identifiers in the iNaturalist app. For all of those who don't know, iNaturalist is a community-driven application for naturalists, for mycologists, for anybody in the natural world who can and has the ability to take photographs and put it out there into the space. So it brings together many elements of not just identification but also of documentation. It is a collaborative effort of the National Geographic Society and the California Institute, and I think it is, for all those who are new to the space, a big benchmark in where you see yourself or where you validate where you stand in the global network. So just a little bit about that. I don't want to get more into it, but I'll let Hari kind of do the talking. Jashid, if you'd like to just introduce, and then we can begin.
Like introduce?
Just talk a little bit about your experience with Hari.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, like I said before, I think before Hari you joined in, I was just telling them about the first time that we met. So, interestingly enough, I started posting some photos online on some Facebook groups specific to Indian fungi, hoping for some guidance in terms of identification, because when I started this journey, I was not really able to get my hands on any guides which is specific to India or to South India more specifically. And that's where I found this, when I found Hari, actually, he's been commenting on all posts, left, right and center, asking all kinds of questions. And I was like, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And then we started, I DM'd him and we started talking, and then it turned out that he was really into mushrooms, just like all of us here. And that conversation led to us meeting in person and going on a foraging walk with our friend Vyo, who also is chief cultivator at Nuvedo. Shout out to Vyo. So 3 of us went on a walk. We found a lot of really interesting mushrooms. Some for the first time. It was my first time finding Termitomyces. That was the highlight of the foraging walk for me. And from that, we sort of came up with the concept of foraging walks, and we decided that, okay, fine, this feeling that we had when we were looking at mushrooms in the wild or inside the city, actually, we want more people to feel this. And we wanted to make this open to as many people as we can. And that's how this whole urban foraging walk series of Nuvedo started. And the rest is history. We are here now. So this was like a year ago. So That's how we got introduced. And after that, the engagement has been like getting better with time. From Foraging Box, the latest addition to our portfolio of events is our identification workshop, a 4 long intensive identification workshop, which is conducted by Hari himself. No words for it, one of the best out there, if not the best. And yeah, this is how the space has been evolving. Really curious to see how this, moves forward and what all things we come up with. But like, yeah.
So over to you, Hari. Let's just get into it. What got you into mushrooms? How did you start this? What got you into it?
So it is very interesting that I started noticing after I started cultivating. So that is my starting point. So I'm not a very good cultivator, but it was there in our curriculum as a part of curriculum in the college. It was there. So most of them were not very interested in cultivation and all those things, but I was always fascinated by how the mushroom grows, and the whole process was very engaging. So I after that we got a semester break, and I got back home and I started cultivating in my home. So at this point, I started noticing all the mushrooms out there in the wild. So till that point, till like before cultivation started, I was a person who was least interested in mushrooms, or I had never noticed any wild mushrooms. So from that point, I started noticing wild mushrooms. I started noticing all the colors and all the different morphological characteristics that the mushrooms are having. Like some are like a toadstool, and some are like a bracket. So all these things I started noticing, and somehow I got into this. Like it just pulled me into this. So that is how I got into the started interest. So yeah, that is how it started, and now I'm here.
So I mean, so that's mushrooms, and of course there was like a small, part of it.
Yeah,
But the entire space of mushrooms is so wide. And
yeah.
how did you fine tune that lens into taxonomy and say, oh, okay, this is where I want to be, and this is where I want to get deep into? How did taxonomy and identification kind
So
of?
yeah, so
Maybe explain what taxonomy is to
Right, for
normal,
people
yeah,
who are just,
people like me.
yeah.
So taxonomy is basically it starts with identification, classification of organisms into different, what you will say, how you will arrange books in a library based on the genres, right? Genre. So just like that, we are arranging the organisms based on certain characteristics. That is what taxonomy basically is. So identification is like the first step for anything, be it cultivation or any other aspect of mycology. Identification is the first step. So that is the major thing about identification. And how I got into this identification or taxonomical aspect of mycology is actually by chance, because
Okay.
I was not aware about the taxonomy or identification, all these things. But somehow I got into some groups, like identification groups. I started observing the mushrooms. I started going out, seeing the mushrooms, and all these, I started learning without even noticing that I'm learning. So that is how the process started. And somehow I gained the courage to identify mushrooms myself, and it worked out actually. So with a little bit practice and dedication, and yes, you have to be a great observer to be a great identifier. So that is the main thing. And you have to spend a little time to learn about them. So that is the main process of becoming an identifier. And anyone can become an identifier. That is the
Hmm.
thing. If you have the
Right.
interest, you can definitely become an identifier.
I like the part that you said, didn't know I was learning. I was learning without
Yeah,
even knowing I was learning. And I
yeah,
think I mean, I just wanted to highlight that that's a lot that I mean, I think I feel a lot in the micro space as well, where every day is a learning, and you sometimes don't feel like you're actually learning. You're learning a lot, of course, but there's so much to discover, there's so much to look into. And I think I love that you said that, because it resonated with me a lot, and I think that is really the essence of observation in
yeah.
its purest form. So yeah, I mean, and guys, interestingly, Hari, like I said, he spends so much time on Facebook groups as well. He's actually the admin of a Facebook group, which is called Fungi of the Planet. And it has about 5,000 members globally. So there's something that was just a hobby or like an interest that he was speaking maybe through a platform kind of flourished into a very serious how do you call it? I want to call it a
what do you even call it?
Yeah,
it's a serious interest.
It's a way of life.
It's a passion.
It's a passion. So
I think mycelium and mushrooms have the power to do this.
Yeah.
And you realize where it sort of leads you, right? Okay, fine. Many people enter this space through cultivation, like both you and I, but look at the spaces that we've sort of diverged into. And I think that is the true power of mushrooms to be able to go in and give you your own space to find and figure out and like explore and develop your own passion for the mycelium, whatever way that is.
And honestly, I think it's a passion for sure, but it's also like I think the pursuit of identification, the pursuit of competition is a serious hobby. I mean, it can be something where people have. I mean, maybe you can share about if someone were to get into this space. How are the ways in which they could explore it? Is it just a hobby? Is it a passion? Is it maybe your experience on how you feel about it?
Yeah, so identification is not a new thing actually.
Yes.
So in the Western world, it is very popular.
Yes.
Like there are many great identifiers, great taxonomists in the Western world. When it comes to India or other Asian countries, the identification and taxonomy is mostly restricted to the academic side of it. That is, most of the identifiers or the people who learn taxonomy or do taxonomical works are from an academical background. So that is something that was very interesting for me because there are lots of mushrooms out there in India which are yet to be identified, yet to be described. There are new species. And still there is a very, what you'll say, lack in number of people who are interested in this. So that is, that made me think like, okay, this has to be like a greater thing. It has to flourish like how it is flourishing in the Western world. So
Absolutely.
identification is not just a hobby. For some people, it can be a hobby. Most of the identifiers, they are not what you will say. Their primary profession may not be mycologist. They may not be a mycologist, but yes, they have contributed a lot to the space. So it can be a hobby. You can get serious about it. Like you can start exploring the space. You can go find new mushrooms. You can write a paper if you are interested. Or else you can go out, find new edible mushroom variants. There are lots of ways you can branch out from this identification. Yeah.
And would you say, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is not confined to just a hobby. It has a more like larger perspective that has to be what you will say identified. Like that is the main thing.
Yeah.
I think adding to Hari's point, just a food for thought is, I don't feel that there is lack of identification in India, but since we are such a diverse country and language can change from place to place, even in districts they might not speak the same language. I feel the wealth of fungal knowledge or mushroom knowledge truly lies in the interior regions of India where people are still very close to nature. And since there is a language barrier, a lot of those things don't reach us.
Right.
There are so many papers in mycology where the Hakims of Kashmir or the tribal healers of the Northeast, they describe dozens, if not more, mushroom species, right? But they describe them in their local language. They don't know the scientific terminology. Back in the US, that's not the case. Everybody speaks the same language and things interact in India very easily.
Right.
So I feel like there are a lot of people who know this. There is a big wealth of information that we have in India, but it's just untapped and like slowly disappearing as we
there are actually challenges when it comes to the Indian perspective. There is lack of technology, lack of awareness, and yes, the language barrier is greater when it comes to Asian countries. So the local knowledge or the traditional knowledge that we have is actually confined to the locality. It even within between states, it is not getting transcribed. So that is the main problem. Yeah,
Correct.
there is a lot of local knowledge out there. So
Yeah, and I mean, just so adding to that, I guess there is an importance to be doing this. There is a need for
yeah,
it. I mean, if not for a hobby, even from a larger perspective. So maybe, for those who have just started, maybe, looking at mushrooms, or maybe what would you say is a larger, maybe if you to zoom out and look at it, what would you say are the important reasons why one must be doing this?
Why do we need to identify
Yeah, why?
mushrooms?
yeah. As I said, first of all, diversity.
Yes.
So the diversity that we have here, the unexplored diversity. Actually, mushrooms are very, what we'll say, understudied creatures, to be honest, because there is very less funding and there is very less studies going on mushrooms. So that lack of knowledge is there, like lack of studies that are happening, and also part of conservation. That is second thing. So we don't really understand what are the interactions that these mushrooms are having with other creatures. What is the importance of conserving them, or
Right.
are they, yeah, are they interacting with other creatures? Is it necessary for the ecology? So all these aspects are not well explored when it comes to the mushroom world. Then next is they provide us a lot of things. Like if there are no fungi in a certain area, you can see that all the degradation process or all the carbon cycling, recycling, all these things will get affected. So that is another thing, another aspect that we have to explore. So all these things, it just means that mushroom or fungi is very important for the nature to sustain. So if it is a need to learn more about them. So it is our responsibility to conserve them, to learn about them. So I think that is the main thing that is there. And also mushrooms are, what you will say, they have lots of applications, they as a
Right.
food, as, yeah, mycomaterials, and as a therapeutic agent. So all these things have to be explored more. We still don't know how many toxic mushrooms, how many medicinal mushrooms are there. Like
Right.
we
Absolutely.
have lots of diseases, we have lots of what you will say, new viruses, or all those new microorganisms or pathogens are there, but we need more cure for them. So
Correct.
maybe all these cure can be found in the nature, in mushrooms. So that is
Right.
also another aspect of it, why we should learn about them. So
Right.
yeah, that is the thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, like if all these reasons are not enough to learn how to identify, India is such
Yeah.
a country that you could probably name a mushroom after yourself,
Yeah. Who
right?
knows?
See, yeah, that
It's
is what
you
the
have
thing
so
with
much
India
more. So
is.
even if
Yeah,
say out of just reasons of putting your legacy or leaving your legacy behind, who knows? Maybe we could have a Hari emphasis or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Ganoderma hariensis. Consider that you have
so
for.
that is one thing I'm always against about naming mushrooms in like someone's name. Yeah,
Right, right.
it doesn't serve the purpose. The one
Right.
interesting thing about India is the geographical diversity is like, what you'll say, it is very awesome in India, because if you go from Kerala to Tamil Nadu, the kind of
Right.
terrain you will see is different. From Tamil Nadu to any other state, it is different. So all these geographical, what we'll say, diversity is also supporting mycological diversity, or the diversity that is there.
So we got
So
Sharad says Amanita Hari Kyul. Yes, indeed. That would be really good. Yeah, a lot of funny ones coming in. We've got Shruman that says, okay, no, he just Silosai Bhari. Okay, yeah, we got some good ones
Yeah,
there.
imagine like naming a
yeah,
magic mushroom after you. I think that's like a
actually. Actually, once you get into this field, you will start noticing all the diversity that is there in the myco world. So that is very important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that is
And
one
it is
reason why we need more identifiers in India.
Right.
So it shouldn't be restricted to the academic world. There
yeah.
should be a bridge between. That is my like main aim is to build a bridge between the academic world and to the common people.
Right.
So
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's a wonderful way of even approaching it. Without limiting yourself to, the possibilities of collaborations that could be.
yeah,
And, it's funny because people are always looking for a one size, fixed solution, or they're looking for one way to do it, or give me one rule. In fact, quite recently, I mean, quite often we get DMs from community creators, circle members who ask us, is there a rule of thumb to,
Yeah.
identify
How
what
do
is,
we know what we can eat and what we can't? Like, what's like a rule of thumb for like the easiest way to know which mushroom is edible or not?
and that's the crazy part. It does not have a rule of thumb. It isn't black and white.
Yeah,
And
it's a science and an art, if you ask me.
yes.
yeah.
So
So
in fact, yeah, go ahead.
no, yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I mean, I was just thinking, if there were any interesting myths that you'd like to bust, or if any you've come across that perhaps you could,
Yeah, wrong practices are identifying mushrooms.
some such thing.
Yeah, so myths in the sense in Indian context, everything is a myth, to be honest. Like there are lots of myths out there. So, like edibility, when we are discussing, first thing is with respect to what? Are we talking about edibility with respect to humans or edibility with respect to any other animal? So that is the first thing that comes to mind. So many people believe that if a mushroom is edible to like some other creature, like a squirrel or some other creature, it would be edible to us. No, that is not the case. Our bodies are built in a different way. So every creature has their own digestive tract or their own tolerance to certain compounds. So
Right.
even within the same species, like even within humans, some humans can be or some people can be allergic to certain mushrooms. Some people may not find certain mushrooms digestible. So these things are there. So edibility, there is no golden rule when it comes to edibility.
In
That is the
fact,
first thing.
on that ability note, if one of the really sweet comments from somebody's photo stories, he or she or they say that you can save people from eating poisonous ones too. Honey helped me save my aunt from a catarrhicide virosa. So, wow, I did not
Yeah.
know. Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. So I can't hear you. One second.
no,
So
we were
yeah,
just we got a message from someone in the
yeah.
chat who said that you saved their aunt from Cantharicide virosa species.
Yeah. Actually, Cantharicide virosa is one of those mushrooms that have caused like toxic reactions in Asian context. So there
Right.
Right.
were reports of issues regarding with to this species. So
So
that is one
I want
thing.
to ask,
So
curiosity, is this mushroom white in color by any chance?
is this?
Is this mushroom white in color by any chance?
Yeah, it's kind of white with a like off-white grayish cap. Yeah. So
So
the
again, interesting myth that we find everywhere is white mushrooms are safe to eat, the colorful ones are toxic because color
so
supposedly
this
indicates
is
something is dangerous. So do you want to comment on
so
that?
yeah. So the rule we apply for other creatures like colorful things can be toxic. That is a general rule that we follow when it comes to kingdom Animalia or whatever it is, like in animals. So
Hmm.
this is not applicable when it comes to mushrooms.
Right.
Right.
So most of the toxic mushrooms out there are white in color. So you can see the Amanita species in the section Phalloidae. So all these
Right.
Amanitas, white Amanitas, most of the white Amanitas are toxic Amanitas.
For all
Not
those
all of them.
who are listening in,
Yeah.
next time you see a white one, don't Don't assume.
Yeah, and like Hari said, if you see a
Yeah,
squirrel eat a mushroom, doesn't mean you can eat it. Fun
that is what.
fact, squirrels can eat the most deadliest ammonitas. They eat a lot of
Yeah,
mushrooms. Big part of their diet is mushrooms. They can eat the most deadliest ammonitas and get away with it. So just because an animal eats something doesn't mean that it's safe for us to eat. And a
this
color
is
also
this
is
is
not an indication.
Yeah, this is one thing we get in our groups, ID groups mostly. They assume that, okay, a slug was eating the mushroom, so it must be safe to us. So
Right.
Right.
slugs, they can eat most of the mushrooms. So that doesn't mean that they are edible to us. So that is the thing. And also, why identification is important for consumption is that there are many mushrooms, edible mushrooms out there that have toxic lookalikes.
Right.
Right.
So, when it comes to the pleurotus or the oyster mushrooms, so there are some omphalotus species like Omphalotus nidiformis, like ghost mushroom, it is called. So those
Right.
look just like oyster mushrooms to a untrained eye. So assuming that it is edible or assuming something is edible can be fatal.
Right.
Right.
And I think another thing, like a common practice that we find in all these identification groups is they won't tell you the exact ID with certainty because they don't want to risk somebody else's life.
Hmm. Yeah.
Unless
So
100%.
Yeah, so one thing that is there is people usually give ID to species level,
Right.
many
Right.
of them. So I have found that it is not a very good practice. If you know your thing, okay, it is fine. If you are a beginner and you want to ID something or you are in the learning stage, it is always learning stage. But still, if you are in the initial stage, it is always better to ID mushrooms to the genus level
Yeah.
because going to species level can it has lots of challenges. You will have to do the microscopic analysis or the genomic analysis to accurately ID a mushroom. So that is one thing. And why I'm telling is this is because when you talk about the chlorophyllum that is there, so the chlorophyllum molybdites is one of the species in the whole chlorophyllum genus that is toxic. There are
Right.
other chlorophyllum species that are edible.
Right.
Okay, so and they look similar in morphological aspect for an
Right.
untrained eye.
Like
So
a
if someone
parasol.
that is what. So if someone IDs a toxic chlorophyllum as an edible chlorophyllum, then it can result in like issues. It can
Right.
cause a toxic reaction in that person. So that is one of the things that is there. Like why we always are cautious about our IDs
Right.
because we
And
don't want you to get in danger.
right. But here again, like we're like on the verge of spreading microphobia here. So here I just want to interject and say that one common myth is that if a mushroom is toxic, you can't touch it. Or there are certain people
That
who come and
is
say, "Oh, that mushroom is toxic." So we want to comment on that. Touching,
no.
spitting.
Yeah, so mushrooms, even the deadliest of mushrooms, are not toxic if to handle. So you
Not
can
toxic.
safely touch mushrooms. There are people who spit and like test is there. So
A
you can
small.
nibble a little and spit the content out. So toxic mushrooms are only toxic when you ingest them. It has
Right.
to
Right.
reach your digestive tract.
Fact.
So that is the thing. So it doesn't mean that you have to go and pick all the mushrooms that you see. So that is the conservation part of it. So
Right.
it is always you have to be little ethical when you come to foraging.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
I just wanted to, take a few comments that people have said.
yeah,
Your thesis entry says that adding a myth that he's heard is that adding a silver coin distinguishes poisonous and non-poisonous mushroom. So,
adding silver coin. Okay,
I've heard a
so
similar thing where they say if you boil a toxic mushroom in garlic water and if the water turns black, the mushroom is toxic. This sounds so
so
scientific or like so like that person knows what they're talking about, right?
so these are all myths actually. Yeah. So
exactly.
adding
So this
silver
is
coin.
some of the myths that commonly are heard, and of course
Yeah.
there are a lot more myths, and the science of identification is a far deeper than I had ever thought it would be. And I'm still learning, we're still learning from Hari, from all of us around it. To be able to get deeper into it, you have to spend time. And I think that's something we can't stress on enough as a community.
Yeah.
Another comment that Meanwork said is imagine the amount of wisdom we get out of squirrels if they could speak. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Could speak, if squirrels could speak, we definitely know a lot more about the other species.
Not just that, they're the animals out there before winter who harvest mushrooms, dry them in the sun. They take a bite out of the mushroom and dry them in the sun. Why do you dry mushrooms in the sun? For vitamin D. And because they're going to go into winter and because there's not going to be enough sunlight, they've been sun-drying mushrooms and keeping them, feeding themselves with vitamin D for a long time. And we figured out all of this in the last 100 years.
Right.
So yeah, squirrel can probably tell us a lot of things about mushrooms.
Also, Bele sir says, Hari, how could we get academic mushroom taxonomists onto social media platforms to help general public in identification, edibility issues? Any recommendations, please?
Yeah, so the thing with academic researchers or taxonomists is that first is most of the older taxonomists, they are not well equipped with technological advancements. So that is one thing. Second thing is that there is always a gap between the academic world and the common people. So bridging this, I think Bele sir has done a great job in this. He have
for all the amazing
he has done a lot of things to what you will say bridge this gap, like the Mycoverse journal that he's handling, and also the ID groups. So Facebook groups is a place where the common people and the what you will say academic researchers can come in touch. So that is one point of contact. So social media plays a very critical role in this, because before the advancement of like technology, before social media was popular, the amount of popularity that mushrooms were getting in India or any part of the world was very less.
Correct.
At that time, at that time, books were the only medium that was there. Yeah, so books, for some people, it will be a little difficult to read books or to understand the concept of all these things. So social media is one of the major things. And I believe that it is up to the academic researchers to, what you will say, create a campaign or to create an outreach campaign. Because, obviously, common people will be little intimidated to get in touch with the academic researchers. So I believe that the academic researchers should realize that there is a need to spread the knowledge to the common people too.
Right.
So that is
I agree too. I think that's, and I think Microbiologist journal is a wonderful way of doing it.
Yes.
More, I think if you're looking at taxonomy more strategically, a campaign surrounded with transfer of that technology or transfer of that knowledge into public.
Or just say, putting a message.
Actually,
yes, I know this. If you have any doubts, just ask me.
Yeah.
Could be as simple as that. We don't know who knows what. Right?
Yeah. And Mycoverse is conducting several workshops also when it comes to it is actually aimed at spreading knowledge. Same thing. So that is also very helpful to common people. So I think that is very important. More academic researchers should come forward and to, what you will say, they should be ready to give the knowledge.
Yes, absolutely.
And speaking of which, I think I just want to take this time to say that the module that Hari has put together is a very good example of how you can take something that nobody can understand, all the complex terminologies, compress it into like 2 hours and make it as approachable as possible. Because the way that Hari has structured his presentation and his content for the identification workshop, I think kudos to you, because anybody who doesn't even know the ABCs of mushrooms will just come to the presentation. I'm sure they're going to walk away with a good set of skills and tools to identify this, no matter what the background is. You might be
So
Like in between your journey, it could be a refresher for you to get the jargon and the terminologies right, or it could be somebody who doesn't know anything about this. I feel like Hari's done a brilliant job of taking all that complex knowledge and giving each person something to, grasp.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
so so the thing is, it is easy to what is it, scare people out of this with
Right.
terminologies. Yeah. So for a beginner, it is always easy. Like they feel more comfortable when you explain things in a way that they can understand. So if someone who is starting the journey is hearing all these complex terminologies that are there and all these morphological terminologies, all these concepts, so it can be a little what you'll say scary for them. Yeah, they'll just move away from the topic. So it
Yeah.
is always that is one thing I have done in the workshop. That is the module that I've created. I have tried to minimize the number of terminologies. Yeah, making
Yeah.
it simpler. Yeah. So
And I think we can all vouch for that. Whoever's attended Hari's workshop, I think can easily vouch for the fact that anyone can come and understand
Yeah.
what this is about.
In fact, on that note, I mean, actually, Sharad has a question, which is quite in the same context, and I thought good time to take it. He says, can you explain some of the problems that people face in the field of taxonomy? And why is taxonomy such a headache for academicians? I mean, why does it, become problematic, or what could be?
okay. Yeah. So the problems that face, like for common people, the problem that they face is mostly the expense. So it
Right.
is the taxonomy. It is not just identification based on morphology. You have to go to the sequencing or the genetic part of it to get a better idea about where the organism stands in the evolutionary pathway. So for that, it is bit expensive. You don't have the resources for that. So the resources only there are only few labs or what you will say in India. If you say there are only a few labs that can provide you these facilities, and the I think academic researchers are more equipped with technology when it with respect to taxonomy. So they have enough fundings, they have enough what you will say resources that they can utilize to study the mushroom. So that is one thing that one challenge that a common person can face in this field. Okay, even microscopy, even
Right.
microscope is not accessible to most of the people, right? So
Right.
that is one thing. And why taxonomy is a headache?
To academics.
First,
He said to
yeah, yeah,
academics.
yeah. So that in that too, the evolution of technology that has happened. So first, it was only what you say. There was no microscope. That time, everything was easy. They have arranged everything into different groups based on the morphology. Then
Right.
microscope came in, and people started viewing things under microscope. Okay, this is wrong. That is right.
Right.
Everything got mixed up. Now what happened? The genetic level of it came of the identification came in,
Right.
and again things got messy, and now it is a total mess. Now taxonomists are they are trying hard to what you will say understand the evolution of organisms and to classify them accordingly. So
So
that is
there,
a major challenge.
so there must be a lot of reclassification happening, right? Since all of this technology.
Seriously, the past 1 or 2 decades, I would say, has been a mess. Even recently, some of the families got revised in a couple of years back. So we are still trying to relearn, or what you'll
Mm.
say. Yeah,
So
it
considering
is a
this,
process now.
right, considering what you just said, you think that then books are not really a good source of
No.
information because they could be outdated?
Yes, yes. The problem with books are that some people what they'll do is they'll write a book and just leave it out there. There is no revisions that are
Update.
happening. Yeah. So most of the what you will say field guides or books that are there are outdated. So if your book is like 5 years old, then there are chances that most of the organisms or most of the mushrooms that are there in that might be in some other genus or some other place like family. So
So
that
what
is one challenge.
is the resource?
like as a
So
resource, I would say,
What resources?
yeah, yeah, someone who is updated with knowledge is the best resource.
that's
So
it.
you will
Yeah.
get that.
Indian note
Yeah,
store
that.
is your best resource.
Yeah. In
So
fact, we just got a comment from Shivani saying, "Hey, I want to know more about the workshop. How can we attend?" And we just have to go straight to
Linktree.
our link tree, and we've got a registration form there to sign up. We have just a
hello.
few thoughts. Yeah.
I didn't hear the question. Can you please
No,
repeat?
no, no. Just someone had asked how they want to attend. I think
How
it's
they
a
can register for the workshop.
workshop. So I've just
Yeah,
did it.
actually, even I have added the registration link to my bio. And
Awesome.
yeah, you can find the registration link in my bio or Nuvedo's bio.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can fill that up and you can join for the workshop. It will
Awesome.
be best for beginners, I would say. For
Yes.
a experienced mycologist, I don't think it will be what you will say necessity, but still it can act as a refresher. That is
Right.
a thing. Yeah.
I think Hari's being very humble here.
Guys,
Yeah.
just for everyone out there, it's a lot of humility at play, which I appreciate and I respect. But there is a storehouse of knowledge,
Is that?
and it amazes me. Like I say, every time I meet him, it's something new, and there's so much to learn. And it's in fact quite recently we had all gone on a foray together. I just wanted to share this incident where I see Hari, scratching his head, and he said, "I'm so troubled that the families are being changed all the time." And these are the things that he thinks about very deeply because he is so deep in the subject matter that it is very inspirational. So I couldn't be happier to be working with you and
Facilitating something
something
like
like
this.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hey,
yeah, I have actually what you will say structured the module like different characteristics that you have to look into so that you can identify
right.
a mushroom. So all the major characteristics or all the characteristics that are there, I have listed it out. This is not like something I have read and structured. This the everything that is there in that is like picked from here and there. So I have compiled all the information that are there and I have compiled it into a module. So I think
Right.
it will be very useful for people.
And not just the information in the module, I think a lot has to do with Hari's personal anecdotes and interaction with whoever's attending the workshop. Those personal stories and small tidbits of information that you throw in here and there is also worth a lot more than just the content because I think that's where a lot of value lies in where you share your personal experiences with the
Yeah.
participants.
So on that note, I think we're already almost an hour in. What is the longest length? But
Mhm.
I wanted to ask, and we always ask anyone who comes on our MushTalks, this one being through the Mycoverse of the Indian Growth School, what is your favorite mushroom and why?
My favorite mushroom. So it's a tough question actually. I
Yeah,
have lots of favorite mushrooms, but Amanita muscaria is like one mushroom I wish I could. Yeah, that is one mushroom I'm longing to meet actually. So
uh,
yeah, I have to go in search of the mushroom. It doesn't come to you. You have to go in search of it. That is the thing.
absolutely.
I would disagree. I think if you're looking for it, it is looking for you also, and it's just a
Oh,
matter of time
Yeah,
to meet. And
yeah.
true
yeah.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the journey in identification is a fairly deep one. It has the scope to really explore your own self as well because it's everywhere, it's around you, it's accessible, and
Yeah, it's such a mindful
it's a
activity.
mindful activity. So
Actually, this comment from Belle sir is very true. In taxonomy, only constant is change.
Right.
right, right.
Yeah.
I really like that.
He himself is a mycologist, so he understands the concept way better than most of us.
Correct.
He's yeah.
Nice. So, on that note, guys, I think, we're just going to wrap up for this
Yeah.
first
If
talk
you want to continue this conversation, come hang out with us
at
in
the
the ID workshop.
ID
Yeah.
workshop. And, it's been really fun talking to you, not just on this live. I mean, we always talk, we have a good time, but I think the real fun lies in being out there and exploring mushrooms and understanding them so much more deeper. And thank you all so much, community, Nuvedo Circle, fans of Indian Code School. I see a lot of fans here,
Hey,
and a lot of them might not really
so
understand.
that is
But
one thing I do now. Help people online to identify their mushrooms. So that is like one thing that I do now. So if you have any
right,
queries or any ID request, you can always approach me. My DM, I always tell this. My DM is always open for my mushrooms and microfiles. So yeah,
uh,
you can always text me.
Spoken like a true microphone.
spoken like a true, true unit of the mycelium. And thank you so much, everyone. The community keeps growing. The space is ever evolving, and we look forward to seeing you through not just our ID work, maybe on a foray, maybe in our DMs, anywhere, anything that lets us hang out with us, and we hope to see all of you all soon. Thank you so much for joining in on this live. Namaste, everyone. Thank you, Hari.
Good night.
Good night, and see you soon.